You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear.
Live from FFANY, recorded live from FFANY in
an oxymoron.
In a nondescript room in the pop-up building, where we've got, I don't know how many brands are in 724 Fifth Avenue, where we set up the pop-up for Hey Dude, Birkenstock,
Tom's,
Bagalini, Deer Foam,
Fry, Superga,
Kappa.
Anything else?
Western Chief.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. There's one more.
It's like that game where you're like passing it around like a word play, and then when someone loses, you get,
Get kicked out.
Yeah, basically. So FFANY, really interesting. Always, for me, it's an interesting show because it's so fragmented in many ways, right? Like many brands are located, up in the fashion area, the fashion district, but also all over the city and Brooklyn and everywhere.
Right.
So in some ways, it's a little challenging to get out and see folks, but also a lot of fun because when you do, everybody has different perspective of what's happening and what they're pushing, right? So it's not like when you go to like Magic or something and everybody's there and everybody's walking and you start to see that. Well, you get groupthink. You start walking through and all of a sudden it's like everybody's saying the same things because the marketing's pushing the same narrative. So when you start to have this fragmentation, it's really interesting because the conversations are not fundamentally different, but they're just different in many ways of how people are looking at the market. And that helps us, I think through what those connecting dots are. Without the groupthink, we can kind of get closer to that.
I do think there are some themes that we're hearing. There's a lot of excitement because we haven't been together this robustly, Sandi, in like several years, right? So we're excited to be back. There's a lot of energy. The weather's great. We had a big 210 event, so it was the most efficient use of my time from a connecting point in 2 years. And there are some things on the horizon. There's a lot of inventory that's moved in as the pendulum swings back and forth on the COVID response and what consumers are doing in response to that. But there's a lot of optimism despite those clouds that are on the horizon. So Sandi, as you're here 24/7. What's been like the key takeaway that you think you've seen or heard about as you've heard these fragmented conversations as Andy talks about?
I think this week has been a true reunion of sorts. I think all of the retailers and the brands have been so excited to get back in person, to see product in hand, to touch it, to feel it, to talk about what's happening in the market today and looking ahead at some of the trends as everyone is getting dressed and going back to work and back into offices and back to events. Obviously, the sneaker trend is still very strong and comfort is still very much alive. But I think now people are able to bring in new items, new categories, new lines, new colorways. Sustainability has been on everybody's mind. It's what a lot of brands are leading with, but it's great to see people and product in person. I think that's the key takeaway that I see. And December was a taste of it. We had a great market. June FFANY market was very strong in December, but this June has just been even better and more vibrant than ever. So it's been awesome to see everybody. The 210 event was really phenomenal. It was great. To see Cliff get an award there. Awesome. That was really nice to see his family. It was a fun casino night. Everyone was in great spirits and ready for the week ahead. And this pop-up building has been awesome. It's been 14 brands are here. We've seen retailers come in and out, really enjoying themselves. It's been a great weather week, so easy to get around. Really nicely situated in the heart of the footwear land with 1370 just around the corner. So I've had a blast so far, and it's only a couple days in. So we still have a couple more busy days ahead.
Sabria, this has been your first FFANY. You've been with us 2 years, and we've been talking about this thing called FFANY, and you're like, what's that? And here you are as a newcomer to the event itself, not to the industry, but to this market. What's been your takeaway as you've walked the different showrooms and been in the city and gone to the different events?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been really cool as I guess a rookie to the market weeks. This is my first time really seeing how the process works, and just being able to see how, the showrooms are laid out and, what goes into everything. And so I think it's been really awesome just to really learn, because I didn't really understand how, like you said, how FFANY works, how Market Week works. So it's just been really a great learning opportunity for me. So I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. And it's also interesting because we're trying to, see as many people as we can. And the dynamism of the industry right now is, I'd love to see you, but I got to sell shoes, right? So that's a good thing to not have any time to see us, right? That people are coming in and they're making sales, so that, it's a real positive, that, people are hustling again. There's a vibrancy in New York again. There's a smell in New York again.
Yeah, we heard about that on your video. Kicksovercoffee.com. You can see Andy trudging through the city and then talking to brands and doing his references, his favorite 80s movies.
Right, exactly.
That's been a lot of fun. And it's fun. It was fun to be back in at the Nordstrom headquarters here in New York yesterday. We had, a fun time meeting their team and hosting the FDRA and FFANY board meeting there. Yep. Tacey was there in great spirits, and she hosted us, and it was pretty phenomenal to see, consumers back in the store and shopping and excited about, what's new on the floor. So I love seeing that yesterday too. Yeah.
I guess we should talk a little bit too. We had a board meeting after a FFANY board meeting. It's always interesting because we get to update the board on what's happening in DC and beyond, and all the things that we tackle. And there's a real growing concern about recession issues, inventory issues. Sure. The supply chain conversations are still there, just not as not as verbose or heightened as it has been in the past. But there's just this genuine concern of what's next, right? Like, we're trying to make this shift, and I think a lot of what we're seeing in the marketplace right now, we can all speak to this, is we imported a ton of stuff. Now we got to get through it. We won't really know who was winning and losing in this inventory battle until we get through back to school and we start to see a seasonal shift and what happens with that. But that's on top of consumer spending, right? It's tapering a little bit. Yep. We see really high debt again. Consumers' credit card debt starting to max out again. So,
well, if you're a layperson, you think about how the importation of all the shoes have come in because we were trying to get it in. Everyone's chasing product. Like, I don't care. Just get what you can get. We've brought that in. The consumer's starting to pare back. If you think about the different channels for which footwear is sold here in this country, I think you'll start to see a lot of quality inventory go to off price, right? You'll be hitting Marshalls and Ross and TJ and Burlington and starting to see some really good product flow into those channels because we're just going to have a lot of footwear and the demand is not going to be there as it's been over the last 2 years. So it's interesting just to see the landscape of where the product shifts around as as the industry responds to all these different challenges that, as we said, are like once in a lifetime challenges. There are 4 of them in 1 year, right? And so our industry is super agile, but what's really hard to do is predict what consumers will do in this marketplace.
I do not envy the planners right now. I think that they're really in a position of, they've never seen this kind of environment before. Right. How do you plan? How do you stock? How do you warehouse and ship? I mean, you're right. Everyone ordered a lot of inventory to make sure that they were going to
not run out,
right?
Not run out or have some of the same issues that they had in the past. And now some of those brands are probably going to have some challenges with that too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's just a general kind of concern, I think, broadly across the whole economy, right? You've got a lot of stuff happening in America and the globe with war. We have gun issues in America that people are very concerned about. You have high gas prices. Yep. It's kind of it's one of those times where you got a lot of uncertainty and nerves in the household and sitting around the table budgeting and also worried about your kids and all these things. And, the one thing I would say being in footwear, if it is a positive, and we've talked to like Mark Lardy about this, things like
Right.
that, is, we're at the point where they're not going to be spending money on washers and dryers and high cost items, right? But they can go to a shoe store, buy a pair of shoes, and still feel good about it. They just
right.
might not buy 2 pair of shoes
Right.
at
Right.
this point. But people still need shoes, right?
Yeah,
So that's,
and they're in the stores.
Yeah.
Brick
Yep.
and mortar. I mean, they're walking into stores right now, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a shift in e-com and brick and mortar. So I'm interested to see what happens this season.
also with like type, right? So I keep hearing this, and I'm curious. It's like, oh, we bought way too many casual shoes. I'm like, I could buy some more casual shoes. I'm not even a big consumer, but I could always buy more casual shoes. But now they're talking about this shift, and I think we talked about the trend analysis that we did on our weekly member call, where we had on Zappos came on, Footwear News came on, and Trend Analytics came on, and kind of showcased the trends. And it was really interesting to see this switch from, there's still a casual play, but it's kind of flat. And where some of the growth is now from where it kind of went way down is back to wedding shoes, prom shoes, dress shoes.
Events.
The term, I never heard this. Sabria, have you heard this? Dopamine dress up. Have you heard this term?
No, I
This
have
is
not.
the trend where you like, Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, bedazzle the heck out of whatever you're wearing. Any kind of bedazzled add-on color, any kind of rainbow color, any bold neons. You're supposed to look at it, Sabria, and be like, I'm getting a dopamine hit, like I've been on my phone for 5 hours. So I'm glad you're the coolest one in our group. So I'm glad.
wow.
I'm glad it's an age thing, right? I'm glad that you haven't heard this either, because I sure haven't heard it.
I mean, it makes sense though. You put something on, makes you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you shopping for these days, Sabria?
Probably still sneakers because I like to be comfortable.
Yeah,
I currently have on the hands-free shoes from Nike. So
Oh, those are great.
yeah, super comfortable.
Yeah. Those
Yeah.
are good for walking around Fanny during
Yeah.
this week, right?
Yeah, I had to swap out my flats because I need something comfortable.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's no shame in that.
Well, that's the thing, is after a day back in dress shoes, when you haven't been wearing them in 2 years, all of a sudden your feet get sore, and you're like, oh, I
feeling
got it. Yeah, I'm like going back and forth between some sneakers and my dress shoes, and like, when's that meeting coming up? Like,
Meanwhile, at the 210 event, most of the men were wearing sneakers. I saw.
Not me.
I should have been.
So I will say this, Andy, you were talking about the challenges like the war and recession, all these things. And then we're talking about dopamine dress up. I think the connection is like we're a battered people, right?
Yeah,
We've gone through all these different crises and we're worn out. And what better way to kind of break out of a funk than to put on like some crazy neon pair of kicks or whatever that's going to really stand out and make you feel good. And I think we're trying to like will our way out of the funk, right? And
Yeah.
we do that through fashion.
Yeah, especially accessories and footwear. It's fun. It's easy. It's accessible. It brings a lot of life and joy to your outfit and to what you're wearing. So I think that you're right. I think that that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Well, with that, FFANY Market Week will return in August, first week in August, and we invite all the buyers from across the country to fly in to New York City. If you didn't make it in this time, come in August. It's going to be another great show. We'll be having our annual cocktail party August 1st.
Yep.
Location to be determined, but it will be awesome as we get the industry together again around this dynamic fashion show. And I'm sure by the time we hit August, we'll have clear sight to what's happening in the marketplace and what's occurring. But the one constant will be that FFANY will continue, will be strong and vibrant. And of course, as the industry's association, both, representing and running FFANY and on the operations side with FDRA, we continue to listen to buyers and sellers out there about how to make a vibrant marketplace here in New York. And that still includes, how many times a year are we going to do this? How we get people together, how we build buzz around this, how we strengthen it. And so if anyone has comments or ideas, you can always drop us a line. You can go to shoeandshow.com. And the bottom left-hand side, there's a little microphone there. It's a voice note. You click on that. You leave us a voice note. We'll get that, and we'll get back to you, and we'll put that into our planning as we go forward. We're continuing to learn as we go through this process, as we rebuild FFANY into the great show that it is and always has been. And we look forward to the challenges of that and the opportunities and And we know that, the future is bright as we go through because we're constantly hearing from brands how excited they are to be back in person, how much energy there is in New York, like nowhere else, the city that does not sleep ever. So join us in New York, August. Check out FFANY.org.
Yep.
FFANY.org. Almost said .com, but .org.
You go to FDRA.org and find it easily.
There you go. We appreciate you listening as always. Drop us a line. Make sure you go back and listen to all our great episodes. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're everywhere podcasts can be found. We appreciate it. And until next time, Shoe-In is out.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.